The Force is light and full of shadows.
Before we dive in, check the link in the description if you want exclusive timelines, members-only videos you won't find on YouTube, all on our Patreon. The hangar bay of the tribunal sits in the bones of the ship like a held breath. Steel and amber. The overhead service lights throw everything in warm industrial orange, the kind of light that makes soldiers look older than they are and makes machinery look alive. The air carries the smell of ion exhaust and recycled oxygen, and the faint metallic undertone of blaster cells recently charged. Somewhere through the hull, Mandalore's battle reverberates in low, rolling percussion, not quite sound, more like pressure. The deck plates shiver with it every 90 seconds. Clone troopers move in organized columns between the gunships. Their boots on the grating are precise, unhurried, the choreography of men who have drilled for exactly this deployment 100 times. Captain Rex stands near the bay's deployment ramp, running his pre-drop manifest on a datapad, his helmet under his arm. His expression is the expression he always wears before a siege. Quiet, focused, already 3 tactical decisions ahead of the present moment. Obi-Wan Kenobi lingers near the starboard boarding ramp with his arms loosely crossed, watching Anakin the way he has watched Anakin for 15 years. With the practiced proprietary concern of a man who has learned that the only warning he gets before disaster is the quality of Anakin's silences. At the center of the bay, Anakin Skywalker stands before Ahsoka Tano and holds out the lightsabers. The hilts are new. He built them recently, and they show it. The grip still bright where it hasn't yet worn to the matte finish of long use. The emitter housings fitted with the particular precision he brings to anything he makes with his hands. The kyber crystals inside them pulse blue, faint as a second heartbeat, in a frequency that belongs to him alone. He has been carrying them since the beginning of this mission like a man carrying something he has been afraid to put down. The moment is quiet. The kind of quiet that exists not because the world has gone still, but because something is about to happen that will make everything before it irrelevant. "These are yours," Anakin says. His voice is low and warm, and underneath the warmth is something he doesn't have a word for. They always were. Ahsoka reaches out. Her fingers close around the hilts. His fingers don't release immediately. For the length of one breath, her hand and his hand occupy the same space, and the blue crystals respond to the dual contact with a resonance that neither of them has ever felt before. A frequency that is not one signature or the other, but the strange, precise chord of the two together. The universe breaks open. For Anakin, the phantom pain arrives first. It hits him in a single heartbeat, 40 years of it, compressed and delivered all at once. The weight of the chest plate, the respirator hiss, that mechanical rhythm he breathed to for 2 decades until the sound of his own unassisted lungs felt foreign. The absolute cold of severed force sensation, the silence where the living force should have been. Every breath filtered, every touch received through layers of machinery he could not remove. Then the memories, not like a transmission, but like knowing, the way you know your own name. They arrive simultaneously, the entire architecture of a life lived wrong. Padm's face, then its absence. Mustafar, the heat. Obi-Wan's voice cracking across the black sand. "You were my brother, Anakin," the younglings. He does not look at that memory directly. He cannot. The names arrive last, every Jedi he killed, a cascade of identities delivered like a sentence. He receives them. He does not flinch. Luke's voice in the dark of the Death Star's reactor shaft. "Quiet as a prayer, Father. I won't fight you." And then, arriving after all the wrong things, like something that has traveled a very long distance. Peace. Not earned. Received. The kind that exists on the other side of every terrible thing you have ever done. When someone who knows all of it looks at you anyway and calls you back. He drops the sabers. He drops to his knees. His hands are shaking. For Ahsoka, it is faster. She has walked the space between moments before. The world between worlds is not theoretical to her. She knows its corridors, its impossible light. The way time moves through it like water through cupped hands. Her future self sends everything across the circuit of the dual resonance in a single massive pulse. It arrives not as a flood, but as a recognition. She looks at him, this young, intact face, unmarked by the suit, undamaged by Mustafar, and the breath leaves her body in a sound that is not quite a sob and not quite a laugh. It is the sound a person makes when they arrive somewhere they were afraid they would never reach. She does not drop the sabers. She holds them at her sides. She drops to her knees beside him, by choice, not by force. The deck is cold through the fabric of her leggings. The hangar noise continues around them. Oblivious, she wraps her arms around his shoulders. Not a Jedi embrace. Not the careful, controlled contact of people trained to hold feeling at a measured distance from the body. She holds him the way a daughter holds a father she thought she'd lost. Completely, without calculation, with the full force of 40 years of grief and relief arriving at the same time in a body that is 17 years old and not quite large enough to contain any of it. She doesn't speak immediately. She just holds on. Anakin is hyperventilating. The guilt has a physical reality. It has weight and temperature. It presses against the inside of his ribs like something that needs to escape. He grips her arms. His hands shake. Then her voice, quiet against his ear. "You came back, Sky Guy, a beat." More precise, more careful. "You always came back." His voice, when it comes, is wrecked. Snips. "I did things." She cuts him off. Not harshly, with the authority of someone who has already processed this and arrived at the other side of it. "I know what you did," she says. "I also know what you did at the end." A breath. Both things are true. He grips her arms tighter. His forehead drops to her shoulder. They stay like that, in the middle of a military hangar, in the middle of a war, on the floor. Rex sees it first. He crosses the hangar at a controlled pace that is not quite a run, stops 3 meters away, and runs a rapid threat assessment that tells him nothing useful. "General?" A beat. "Tano, what happened?" Ahsoka looks up at him over Anakin's shoulder. The expression on her face stops Rex mid-breath. He has catalogued the expressions of soldiers in extremis across 15 years. Fear, shock, grief, combat high. The particular blankness of someone who has crossed a line they can't come back from. This is none of those things. This is grief and peace, simultaneously with a certainty underneath both of them that has no business existing on a 17-year-old face. He will not forget that expression. He files it somewhere without a label and waits. "He's all right," Ahsoka says. Her voice carries the authority of someone 4 ranks above where she actually sits. "Give us a moment." Rex gives the moment. Across the hangar, Obi-Wan hasn't moved from the boarding ramp. Something stopped him mid-step the moment the two of them went down, and he is still stopped. Reading the signature spreading outward from Anakin like a ripple from a stone dropped in still water. Not dark. He was braced for dark, he has been braced for it for months. This is not dark. Changed. He stays very still, and files it alongside every other thing about Anakin Skywalker that he does not yet understand. Anakin pulls back from her. He wipes his face with the back of his hand, a blunt, unselfconscious gesture. He looks at her. Really looks. He sees her, the adult, the survivor, the white-bladed wanderer, the woman who stood in a ruined temple and held her ground against him, living inside the 17-year-old face, just as she sees him. He picks up both sabers from the deck and places them into her hands. Not with casual warmth, with the deliberateness of someone completing a promise that was already made a long time ago. "We have a great deal to discuss," he says. Calm, certain, already calculating. The officers' quarters are small the way all military spaces are small, everything sized for function, nothing for comfort. A bunk. A fold-down desk. A viewport showing the blue-black of open space, and, at the edge of the frame, the pale crescent of Mandalore catching starlight. Ahsoka seals the door, then presses both palms flat against the doorframe and pushes a thread of the Force outward, compressing the air in the corridor into a dense, soundproofed boundary. A crude technique. Effective. The kind of thing you learn when you've spent years operating without backup in places where being overheard means dying. He watches her do it, and says nothing. The woman in that technique is not 17. They sit across from each other on the edge of the bunk. The room contracts around the two of them into something that feels less like a military vessel and more like a confessional. By unspoken agreement, They keep their combined force signature minimal. Two force users cycling through the equivalent of a psychic detonation produce a signature even a mediocre sensitive could detect across a ship. Mace Windu is not mediocre. They have perhaps 20 minutes. 20 minutes is enough. They are both accustomed to working fast. "I need to verify," Anakin says. No preamble, no apology. It is simply the first true sentence of the operational reality they are now in. She nods. He gives her something no intelligence operation could manufacture, something so specific and so painful that only Ahsoka the White could know it, and only because she lived the moment herself. The words she spoke on Malachor before she descended into the ruins. Not the defiant ones. The quiet ones. The ones she said to herself when she thought no one was close enough to hear. "You'll have to do it without me." The color leaves her face in a single slow recession, like tide pulling back from shore. She is very still for a moment. Then she gives him something back. She tells him the name Luke gave the Ewok village on Endor. Bright Tree. A name so small, so specific, so entirely human in its smallness. The kind of detail that belongs to the texture of a life rather than its history. That it could not be fabricated. Could not be guessed. Anakin sits with it for a moment. His jaw works once. He nods. Two souls confirmed. They trade futures like horrifying gifts. Precisely, deliberately, neither rushes it. Anakin starts with Mace Windu. He cannot say it plainly. Some things, even between the two of them, require the privacy of implication rather than language. He describes the window of the Chancellor's office. The quality of the light. The sound the glass made, his own hands, and what he did with them, and the fraction of a second that separated one version of history from another. He doesn't look away while he says it. He owes her that. She already knows. She was on Mandalore when it happened. She heard it the way you hear a door close in a room below you, the vibration through the structure of everything. She doesn't make him say the rest. She tells him what the siege cost. The clones turning. Rex's chip activating, and what his face looked like in the moment before it did. The way her sabers fell into the mass grave because she chose to leave them as a marker, as a promise she couldn't quite articulate to the dead. The years afterward, moving alone through a galaxy that had reorganized itself around an empire, thinking, not always, but often enough, that she was somehow a variable in the equation that produced him. That staying might have changed the calculation. Anakin's response is physical. His head turns away. Not flinching, he has been beyond flinching for the length of an entire other life. But something precise and deliberate in him needs to look elsewhere for a moment while he receives it. Then he gives her the suit. He doesn't narrate it. He gives her 4 sentences. The cold, the hiss, the silence where the force should have been. The way decades feel when you live them inside a machine that keeps you alive as a form of punishment. Her eyes go dark with the weight of it, and she doesn't look away, not once, and that steadiness is the most generous thing anyone has given him since Luke. Then, Rebels. He knows the broad shape. He was Vader. He was there. She fills in what he couldn't see from inside the mask. Lothal, what Ezra cost Kanan. What it felt like to watch Kanan die and know the shadow responsible wore her master's face. She is precise about this. She is not cruel, but she is not gentle either, because this is not a moment for gentleness. This is a moment for truth. And she has learned that the most loving thing you can give someone who needs to understand what they've done is the unmediated reality of it. He takes it. He holds eye contact, and he takes all of it. Then she tells him about Malachor, the moment she looked into the one exposed eye behind the mask and recognized him. Understood who was inside there, kept fighting anyway. This one lands differently. Something in his face breaks open slightly, just at the edges. He looks away. His hand, braced against the bunk, tightens until the knuckles go pale. She lets him have the moment. She doesn't fill the space with reassurance. Some things need to breathe before they can be set down. When he looks back, the calculation has returned to his eyes. The grief is still there. It will always be there. She understands that now. But it is seated beneath the work, the way load-bearing elements are seated beneath a structure. Present. Functional, not a flaw. A foundation. two-person cell, he says. Absolute operational security. Nothing to Obi-Wan or the Council until the moment of action requires it. She reads his reasoning before he states it. Obi-Wan's institutional loyalty, activated too early, triggers exactly the kind of council deliberation that Palpatine has been exploiting for a decade. They cannot afford the delay. Agreed, she says, with one condition. He waits. Padmé. She holds his gaze. She needs to know, not as a vulnerability to protect, as a resource to deploy. A beat, quiet and precise. She's not a secret to protect, Sky Guy. She's a weapon. Let her be one. His first instinct moves across his face, the reflex to guard, to contain, to keep the person he loves most behind the thickest wall available. She watches it happen and waits for it to finish, because she knows what comes after it. He breathes out. She was always the strongest of all of us, he says. Not conceding the point, arriving at it. She nods once. The plan crystallizes in the space between them, assembling itself from everything they know, with the efficiency of two minds that have been trained to convert intelligence into action, and have, between them, already lived through the version where the plan failed. Mandalore first, the controlled environment, the operational test. Maul, and whatever he knows and whatever he can be made useful for. Then the chip extractions during hyperspace, before they return to Coruscant and lose the isolation the jump provides. Then, Coruscant. Then the Chancellor's office. Anakin will redirect Obi-Wan. He has the rank, the authority, and a tactical justification that happens to be true. Grievous is at Utapau, because Anakin knows exactly where Grievous is. Nobody questions his strategic instincts. His strategic instincts have never once failed in the field. She will manage the ground operation on Mandalore while he handles the broader chessboard. Ahsoka stands first. She ignites one of the blue sabers, just for a second, just to feel the weight of it in her hand, the familiar blue-white glow catching the dim walls and making them briefly vivid. She looks at the blade. She extinguishes it. I spent years wondering if I should have stayed, she says. She is not quite talking to him, more working something out aloud. If I'd been there. Maybe, Anakin shakes his head. His voice carries no uncertainty. If you'd been there, you would have died on Mustafar alongside Obi-Wan. She absorbs that. The mathematics of it. The way survival can hinge on an absence. You being away, he says, is the only reason I had someone left to save me. She stands with that. For a moment. The hum of the ship. Mandalore turning slowly beyond the viewport. Everything's still ahead of them, waiting. She nods once. The door opens. They walk back out into the war wearing different faces than the ones they entered with. The briefing room of the tribunal is a narrow rectangle of gray durasteel and cold light. A holodable dominates the center, its blue projection field displaying Mandalore's surface topology. Clone commanders stand at attention along the walls. Rex is at the far end of the table, datapad in hand, his helmet back on. Obi-Wan Kenobi stands to Anakin's left with his arms folded, and the specific quality of patience he employs when he suspects he is about to disagree with something. Anakin sets a new overlay on the holodable. A second theater materializes beside Mandalore, the outer rim, a system flagged in tactical orange. Utapau. We have intelligence placing Grievous at Utapau. He says it the way he says everything tactical, a statement of fact that the subsequent conversation will be organized around. A source I received during the Mandalore staging. It's reliable. The intelligence is of course perfectly accurate. He retrieved it from 40 years of memory. He also knows that I remember this from a future I already lived is not a briefing posture he can currently adopt. I want the 212th redirected. Full outer rim deployment. He looks at Obi-Wan. That means you. The silence has a specific texture. Obi-Wan unfolds his arms. He looks at Anakin, at the Utapau overlay, at Ahsoka standing half a step behind Anakin's right shoulder, her face entirely neutral in the way faces are neutral when they are working hard at it. You're assigning yourself to Mandalore, Obi-Wan says, because you don't trust Ahsoka to handle it alone. Anakin meets his eyes. I'm assigning myself to Mandalore because I trust her completely. A beat. And I want to watch her work. It is the truest sentence in the entire conversation. Obi-Wan hears it as deflection, because it sounds like the warm deflection Anakin has been deploying for 15 years. He accepts it, with the private reservation of a man who has learned that arguing with Anakin's tactical instincts is an investment with poor returns. The briefing concludes. Orders are cut. Within the hour, Obi-Wan's cruiser is at the launch bay, its docking clamps releasing in sequence, the ship pulling away from the tribunal with the slow, deliberate momentum of a very large object committing to a direction. Ahsoka watches it from the observation deck until it clears the formation and makes the jump, the starline stretching and then snapping into the blue-white tunnel of hyperspace. She exhales. Slow, controlled. "I hated lying to him," she says. Anakin stands beside her, hands clasped at his back. "We didn't lie. We redirected." She gives him a look that contains, in condensed form, approximately 40 years of knowing exactly how he uses language when he has done something he doesn't want to fully examine. "We absolutely lied." A beat. Then something in Anakin's expression shifts, just slightly, a dry movement at the corner of his mouth that is not quite a smile and is funnier for it. She catches it. It catches her. For a moment, in the observation corridor above a besieged planet, they are almost laughing. Almost. The war is still present. But almost. The fleet jumps to hyperspace 6 hours later, once the initial siege perimeter is established. For Force sensitives, hyperspace has a quality that no training document adequately describes. The living force, the constant low-frequency signal of every living thing in proximity, drops to near silence. What remains is the focused presence of the people in the immediate space. Quiet, clean, useful. Their combined signatures are less conspicuous here. They use the window. Anakin finds Rex in the 501st barracks during the off-rotation hour, when half the men are sleeping and the other half are running gear maintenance. He sits down beside Rex on a supply crate with the ease of a man sitting beside someone he has fought next to enough times that formality has become voluntary. Rex sets down the blaster barrel he is cleaning. He takes in Anakin's posture, his face, the quality of his stillness. The instrument he has spent 15 years developing is currently registering, present, focused, not in distress, but carrying something significant. "Captain," Anakin says, "I need to talk to you about a medical matter." He builds it carefully. He begins with Ringo Vinda, the engagement where Tup broke down, where a clone trooper with no prior behavioral anomalies executed a Jedi general without warning or apparent cause, and had no memory of the act afterward. He tells Rex that he and Ahsoka have obtained an analysis identifying a bioelectric anomaly in clone brain tissue, seated adjacent to the hypothalamus, dormant, consistent across every sample tested. He tells Rex he wants to perform a precautionary extraction. Rex and the 5 senior command staff of the 501st. A standard surgical suite, med droids, general anesthesia. The procedure is precise and low risk. Rex is quiet for a moment. The barracks hum around them. "Does it hurt?" Rex asks. "You won't feel a thing," Anakin says. "You'll wake up with a headache." Rex nods once, absorbing this with the economy of a man who trusts his commanding officer. Then he asks the question that matters. "Sir," his eyes are level, direct. "What does it do?" Anakin meets his gaze. He does not lie to this man. He never has. He simply does not give him the full architecture yet. The full architecture would require Rex to act before the operational window is correct, and that creates a leak none of them can afford. What it does, Anakin says, is nothing good, and we're making sure it never gets the chance. Rex looks at him, reads him, runs the instrument against the statement and finds nothing false, because nothing in it is false. "All right," he says. 1 syllable. 20 years of trust, distilled, the surgical bay runs quiet across 14 hours of hyperspace. The med droids work in paired rotations. Anakin and Ahsoka take turns in the monitoring position, one of them always present, always close, the Force extended in a light-sensing posture that traces the bioelectric signature of the chip against the organic tissue of the clone's brain. The chip reads as a wrong note, not loud, not dramatic, just wrong. The way a single instrument playing fractionally off pitch registers against a trained ear. They lift each chip free with the patience of people diffusing something that has already killed everyone they love once. Rex goes first. He is unconscious within 40 seconds of the anesthetic, and his chip is out in 23 minutes. A small thing, pale and slightly organic in its texture, the color of old bone. Ahsoka holds it between two fingers afterward, and looks at it the way you look at a bullet that passed through someone you love, and somehow missed everything vital. She places it in the sealed case without a word. Evidence, proof, ammunition of a different kind. Commander Appo. Commander kicks. 3 others in sequence. Anakin extracts each chip with the focused, unhurried precision of a man who understands exactly what he is disabling. The mechanism that was going to turn these men into weapons pointed at the people they were sworn to protect. His expression during the critical phase of each extraction is the expression of a man who has made peace with the fact that he cannot undo the past and is therefore directing every available unit of himself toward making the future different. The men wake in sequence, an hour apart, each with a moderate headache and the particular sharp-eyed loyalty of the 501st's finest, intact. The tribunal drops out of hyperspace above Mandalore. The planet fills the forward viewport. Pale, damaged, beautiful in the way that things are beautiful when they have survived more than they should have. The dome of Sundari is visible from orbit, catching the system star at an angle that makes it glow like something precious. The clone commanders who woke from surgery with headaches and a gap in their afternoon are now deployed at their stations, sharp and present, and entirely themselves. Ahsoka stands at the viewport beside Anakin. She has her sabers on her belt, both of them, the blue pair, solid and familiar. He has his. The siege spreads out below them like a problem that already has a solution, if you know where to look. After Mandalore, she says quietly, "There's no going back." Anakin looks at the dome of Sundari, at the pale surface of a world that in another life became a grave, and his voice carries the flat certain weight of a man who has already lived the alternative. "Good," he says. Sundari wears its occupation the way a city wears a bruise. Not on the surface, exactly, but in the way people move through it. The civilians walk with their eyes down and their roots direct. The particular pedestrian choreography of people who have learned that attention is a liability. Shadow Collective fighters hold the intersections in small clusters, Mandalorian armor stripped of its house insignia, replaced with Maul's sigil in black. Ahsoka's ground units push through the outer perimeter with the controlled efficiency of clone troopers who know the difference between a defensive position that intends to hold and one that is buying time. These are buying time. She moves through it with Rex at her left flank and a squad of the 501st's best behind her. Fast, because she knows what is at the center. And she knows Maul already knows she's here, and the only tactical advantage left available is not giving him time to decide how to receive that knowledge. Anakin flanks her right. He has said nothing since they hit the surface. His force signature is contained and quiet, the way deep water is quiet, not still, just not announcing its depth. The throne room of the Mandalorian palace had been designed for ceremony, high vaulted ceilings, stone floors and geometric patterns. The grandeur of a culture that considered warfare an art form and built its rooms to reflect that. Maul has done nothing to decorate it. He is standing in the center of the floor when they enter, not on the throne, not near it. Standing, his saber unignited at his side, his posture carrying the coiled attention of something that has been waiting productively. His eyes move across them once, 2 people walking through his door without the tactical dispersal pattern of soldiers preparing for a fight. No aggression in their force signatures. Together, unhurried. With the settled confidence of people arriving somewhere they have already been. His survival instincts fire a warning he cannot immediately source. He has planned for this meeting, 17 different versions of it. In 16, Ahsoka arrives as bait, and Anakin arrives angry, and the confrontation ends with Maul making an offer from a calculated disadvantage. This is not that. His eyes narrow. They know something. He begins the speech anyway, the warning about Sidious, the revelation of Palpatine's true nature, the offer of alliance against a common enemy, each piece delivered with the precise emotional calibration of a man who has learned that information is only as useful as the reaction it produces. Anakin stops him mid-sentence. "We know about Sidious." Flat, certain no performance in it. Not the reaction of someone receiving intelligence, the tone of someone confirming a fact they already hold. Maul goes very still. The kind of stillness that is not peace but its exact opposite, every system redirecting simultaneously. "Prove it," he says. Anakin gives him 3 data points without hesitation. The rule of 2, the operational reality, not the public mythology. The name Darth Plagueis, which Maul's own expression confirms is not public knowledge. The location of Sidious's secondary communications relay on Coruscant, a specific address in the Senate District's infrastructure layer that a 22-year-old Jedi general has no conceivable path to knowing. Maul's yellow eyes move between them. The calculation behind them is visible if you know how to read it. Rapid, disciplined, restructuring. He arrives at the wrong conclusion with the confident efficiency of a very intelligent person whose framework is missing one critical variable. "You have a Sith source," he says. "We have a future source," Ahsoka says. "It's more reliable." That lands in the room like a stone dropped in water. Maul looks at her, reassessing, the reactive young Padawan, fast and aggressive and readable in his mental models. The thing standing in front of him is not readable in the same way. His hand does not, quite yet, move to his saber. Then it moves anyway. He ignites because Maul does not negotiate from a losing position. He fights his way to a better one. It is the deep muscular reflex of a man whose entire life has been constructed from the principle that power concedes nothing. He launches at Ahsoka because he has models for her. His models are 40 years out of date. The reverse grip defense presents him with a geometry he has not prepared for, not the technique, but the quality of stillness behind it. He commits to a window in her high guard that his models say exists. She is not there when he arrives. He increases power. She deflects without stepping back, precise and minimal, using exactly the force required and no more. He increases power again. She deflects again. He is throwing a river at a cliff and the cliff is not moving. 30 seconds. He has made no progress. Anakin crosses the floor. His first movement toward Maul carries 0 aggression in his force signature. Not suppressed, simply absent. For Maul, who has spent his adult life reading combat intent through the Force, the absence of aggression in a combatant carrying Anakin Skywalker's power level is a categorically wrong signal. The threat assessment reflex misfires. He pivots to meet Anakin. Anakin's first movement attacks not Maul's body but his footing. A gem-so application that meets Maul's double-bladed momentum, not with opposing force but with a redirect, catching the rotation of Maul's strike at its midpoint, and displacing his center of gravity 90 degrees. Maul is suddenly facing a direction he did not intend. His weight committed to a vector that no longer connects to a target. Ahsoka has been circling since the moment Anakin drew Maul's full attention. Quiet, geometrically precise, reading the angles of the room in terms of where the opponent is not, and how to occupy that space before he calculates it. One blue saber comes up beneath his guard. The second comes across his striking hand, flat of the blade against his wrist, separating him from his weapon without cutting. The sabers stop, precisely short. He is not cut. He is cornered. The vocabulary of combat has a word for this, and the word is over. Maul goes still. He looks at the 2 blue blades bracketing him, and at the 2 people holding them. The young general with no aggression in his body and the young woman with an adult's eyes, and asks the only question that remains interesting to him. "Who taught you that?" He is looking at Ahsoka. "You did, actually," she says. Indirectly, a beat. On Malachor. With the magna cuffs on and the force suppression collar seated at his throat, Maul is escorted to the antechamber in a chair. He sits. He looks at them across a narrow table with the expression of a man who has decided the position is lost and is calculating what can be extracted from the loss. "What do you want?" he says, not a question. A query for specifications. "Your testimony," Anakin says. "Before the Senate. Before the Jedi Council. Under oath. On record. With corroborating intelligence." Maul's expression shifts fractionally. He expected leverage plays. He expected threats or offers regarding his freedom. He did not expect to be asked to be useful in an institutional sense, which is a category so foreign to his operational experience that it requires a genuine pause to process. And in return, he says. Ahsoka looks at him steadily. Your life, she says. Which, in our timeline, wasn't guaranteed. He runs the calculation. Leverage, survival probability, the value of a living witness versus a dead martyr. A living witness is a leverage point, and leverage is the only currency he has ever trusted. He agrees. The siege concludes in a day. Without Maul as a coherent command structure, the Shadow Collective's coordination collapses from the center outward. His fighters at the perimeter receive no orders from the palace, and without orders they default to individual judgment. And individual judgment in the face of the Republic's full military pressure is not enough. The city surrenders in sections, like a structure losing load-bearing supports, one at a time. The cost is 12 clone casualties. None fatal. 3 broken bones. 1 moderate blaster burn. 2 concussions. By any metric of a contested urban siege, it is not a cost. It is a rounding error. Ahsoka walks through the empty throne room afterward. Her footsteps on the geometric stone floor produce a clean, solitary echo. She walks to the center of the room, where the fight happened, the scorch marks on the stone from Maul's saber. The faint asymmetric pattern that shows where 3 people moved and only 2 of them were trying to win. She stands there thinking about the original timeline's cost for this city. The numbers are precise in her memory, the way numbers are precise when you have spent years carrying them. She does not say this aloud. The saying of it would not change it. She stands in the empty throne room with the weight of a body count that didn't happen. Then she turns and walks back out into what remains of the day, and the work continues. Coruscant from orbit looks like a circuit board dreaming. The city planet's grid of light spreads across its entire surface. No dark continent, no unlit ocean. Just the endless organized luminescence of a civilization that has built over every natural thing it ever had, and replaced it with infrastructure. The military quarters docking bay receives them at 0600 standard. Rex disembarks behind Anakin and Ahsoka, with the alert, slightly headachy focus of a man whose body is 2 days past a medical procedure his mind has not been given full information about. He does not press for that information. He watches the way Anakin moves through the docking bay, the controlled deliberateness, the particular quality of attention. The way his eyes track the space not as a soldier clearing a room but as a man reading a situation he has already calculated 3 moves into, and files it alongside everything else he has been filing since the hangar above Mandalore. Ahsoka peels off at the bay's exit corridor. She has a contact to make. Bo-Katan, brief and practical, the formal handoff of Mandalore's provisional governance. She looks at Anakin as they separate. No words. He nods. She goes. Anakin walks into Coruscant alone. The residential district of the Senate Quarter has a different light quality than the rest of the city. The towers here are older, the transparent steel of their windows treated to filter the perpetual artificial sunset into something that approximates natural color, orange and bronze. Warm without being warm. Their apartment. The door reads his palm and opens. Padmé's at the window. She stands with one hand resting on the curve of her abdomen, watching the traffic lanes below with the expression of a woman who has been having a conversation with herself for some time and has not yet reached a conclusion. She is 7 months along, the pregnancy visible now in the fullness of her face and the way she holds her weight slightly back, and she is still the most composed person Anakin has ever known, carrying the whole of her fear as a private thing. She hears him enter. She turns. Her first read of his face stops her breath. Not wrong. Not the tight-edged darkness she has been watching accumulate in him for months. The sleeplessness, the controlled tension. The way he has been looking at her recently as if memorizing something he expects to lose. That is gone. What has replaced it is something she does not have a word for and does not need one for. Because she has known Anakin Skywalker since he was 9 years old, and she knows the difference between a man managing his fear and a man who has, somehow, been freed of it. He crosses the room without strategy. He simply crosses the room and holds her. Her chin drops to his shoulder. Her hand stays on her abdomen. 1 breath. 2. Then, Ani. Not a question. A landing. He holds her for a moment longer than he needs to, or rather for exactly as long as he needs to. Then he pulls back enough to see her face. He takes her hands. He looks at her with the full unguarded weight of a man who has already lost her once and is therefore no longer capable of taking her presence as ordinary. "I need to tell you something," he says. "All of it." She looks at him steadily. "Then tell me." He builds it in layers. Not from caution about her capacity, he has never underestimated her capacity for anything, but because some truths require a foundation before the weight of them can be carried. He starts with the Force, with the mechanics of what the Council has always told him about its nature, and what he now knows to be true about its depth. He tells her it is capable of things the Jedi Order's institutional understanding has never fully accounted for. He tells her that he has received knowledge, through the Force, through contact at the moment of the lightsaber transfer, of what will happen if they do not act. He tells her, in another life, I lost you. I lost myself trying to prevent it, and the losing of myself became something terrible, and the something terrible lasted for 2 decades and cost the galaxy more than either of us can calculate in a single conversation. He does not tell her about the suit. There are truths that illuminate and truths that only wound, and the suit is the latter. It is his to carry. He will carry it, but not by transferring its weight to her when she needs clarity more than she needs the full inventory of what darkness looks like wearing his face. He tells her, I am not that man. I have not been that man since the hangar above Mandalore. Whatever I was becoming, whatever Palpatine was building me into, it ended there. He holds her hands. I need you to trust that. Padmé looks at him for a long moment. She is a woman who has governed a planet, navigated a Senate full of people who considered deception a professional skill, and spent 20 years reading the difference between what people say and what they mean. She looks at him with all of that, the full political intelligence, the personal history, the accumulated understanding of Anakin Skywalker across every version of himself she has ever known. Then, she believes him. Immediately, not naively, because the woman in front of him is not capable of naivety, has not been capable of it since she was 14 and a Trade Federation fleet appeared in her planet's sky. She believes him because the man in front of her does not have the darkness she has been watching build for months, and she knows what a fundamental change looks like, and she is not going to waste both of their time performing skepticism she does not feel. What do you need from me? She asks. Former Queen's voice. Clear and direct, stripped of everything ornamental. He exhales. Something in his chest releases that has been braced for a very long time. A meeting, he says. Tonight, Bail Organa. A room that can't be listened to. She is already reaching for her comlink. The Organa senatorial suite occupies the 43rd floor of a tower in the diplomatic quarter, and Bail's private meeting chamber is a room that has been swept for surveillance more times than its cleaning staff has been changed. It has the particular atmosphere of a space used for things that matter, not opulent, but precise. Furniture arranged for a working conversation rather than a social one. 4 chairs around a circular table, no head, no hierarchy built into the furniture. Bail Organa is already there when they arrive. He reads the room, Padmé's composure, Anakin's quality of stillness, Ahsoka's presence beside him with the apparent age of a teenager and the bearing of a general officer. And his face does the thing it does when Bail Organa receives information that confirms a fear he has been carefully not articulating for some time. It goes very still. Then it goes to work. Ahsoka lays it out. She gives it to him in the order a strategist would need it, not chronologically, not emotionally, but architecturally. The foundation first. Palpatine's identity confirmed, with a living Sith witness in Republic custody and documentary evidence being prepared for transmission. Then the structure. Order 66. The biochips. The clone army as a weapon aimed at the Jedi Order from inside the Republic's own military. Then the timeline. Days, not weeks. Then the plan, layer by layer, each piece placed with the economy of someone who has done this briefing before in a different room, and learned what to lead with, and what to hold. Bail listens without interrupting. When she finishes, he is quiet for a moment. His hands are flat on the table's surface. "How do we do this," he says, "in a way that doesn't start a civil war?" "By having the legal framework ready before the arrest," Ahsoka says, "so that when Palpatine falls there is something to replace him with immediately, not a vacuum. A structure." Bail looks at Padmé. The look between them is the compressed communication of two people who have been working in the same direction for years without being able to say so plainly. "A sealed brief," he says. 6 senators. Opened only after the arrest is confirmed. "Yes," Ahsoka says. "I know which 6, Padmé says quietly. Bail nods once. Then he looks at Anakin, the assessment of a man who has spent his adult life judging which people can be trusted with which weights. He looks at Anakin for a long moment. Anakin meets it without performance. What Bail finds there he keeps private, but what he does next is stand up and extend his hand. Anakin takes it. The decisions assemble themselves with the efficiency of people who have no time to waste and understand it. Bail will prepare the sealed brief tonight. 6 senators, personal couriers, no HoloNet transmission. Padmé will draft the Emergency Powers Revocation Act, historically prepared, never deployed, sitting in a Senate legal archive waiting for a moment that never came. She will have it ready for immediate floor introduction the morning after the arrest. Ahsoka and Rex will spend the following 48 hours mapping and staging near the Senate communication relay hubs, 6 primary stations. The points through which Order 66 would travel to the fleet. Rex's jamming protocol, developed during the planning phase, will go active the moment they have confirmation of Palpatine's move. Anakin will maintain his regular schedule. Senate sessions. Council check-ins. His appointment as Palpatine's representative. He will appear unchanged. This is the most demanding performance of the operation, not because he is afraid of Palpatine, but because Palpatine is the most perceptive being he has ever known, and appearing to be the man Palpatine expects requires the precision of someone who has studied the performance from both sides. He can do it. He has spent 40 years inside Palpatine's creation. He knows every note of what that man expects to see. After Bail and Ahsoka leave, the room holds 2 people, and the particular quality of silence that exists after a decision has been made that cannot be unmade. Padmé turns to him. She has been holding a question since he walked into the apartment, through the briefing, through Bail's assessment, with the patience of a woman who knows that some questions have a right moment. "The twins," she says. He smiles. Not the careful, managed expression she has been receiving for months, the one with the fear underneath it, the grief that hadn't happened yet but was already casting its shadow backward through time. This is a real smile, unguarded, the smile of a man who has held his children, who knows the specific weight of them. "Strong," he says. "Healthy, a beat. Extraordinary," she exhales, a long, slow release of something she has been carrying since the vision started. "You've already met them," she says, not a question. He looks at her, and the weight of the entire other timeline is in his face. All of it. The loss, and the decades, and the cost. But it sits there as gratitude now. The specific gratitude of a man who was given something back that he had no right to expect. Returned. "Luke has your eyes," he tells her. She absorbs this. Her hands rest on her abdomen, over the 2 small futures moving beneath them. "And Leia?" she asks, very quietly. He looks at her, at the directness of her, the precision of her, the political intelligence and the courage and the capacity for love that she has never once let anyone use against her, and his voice, when it comes, is the simplest thing he has said in a very long time. "Leia has your everything else." She leans into him. Both hands still on her abdomen. He puts his hand over hers, and beneath his palm, through the warmth of her, he feels the twins move. 2 small lives already restless, already insisting on their own presence in the world. He thinks of twin suns rising over a desert that doesn't have to be anyone's prison. He thinks. This time. The Chancellor's private meditation chamber exists in no official floor plan of the Senate Executive Building. It was created during a renovation 11 years ago, buried inside a structural wall, accessible through a panel that reads as solid durasteel to any scanner not specifically calibrated to look for it. It is perhaps 4 meters by 4 meters. It contains a single chair. The walls are bare. The lighting is absent. Palpatine sits in complete darkness, and has done so for an hour. He reaches for Anakin's signature. It is gone. Not diminished. Not darkened. Not converted. Not suppressed. Gone, replaced by something occupying the same coordinates that Anakin's signature has occupied for 20 years. Something that reads in the Force the way a new mathematical proof reads to a logician. Internally consistent, externally unprecedented, and deeply, specifically wrong in a way that has no existing category. Palpatine sits in the dark, and breathes, and does not reach for his certainty the way a lesser mind would. He examines the wrongness with the precision of a man who has survived 60 years of calculated risk by never mistaking discomfort for danger or danger for discomfort. His internal architecture assembles the options. Anakin turned by the Council, renewed Jedi righteousness would read as light, warm and familiar. This is not that. Anakin compromised by an outside Force user, possible, but the signature carries no external overlay. Anakin undergoing a natural Force evolution, his midi-chlorian count has always been anomalous. Evolution at that level might produce something the existing vocabulary cannot describe. This last option is the most dangerous, because it is the most plausible. And because a naturally evolved Anakin Skywalker operating outside Palpatine's influence is a variable that his model of the galaxy cannot accommodate. He does not move. He breathes. He recalculates. Anakin must fall. The plan requires it. If Anakin cannot be turned, find the mechanism that still turns him. The answer arrives with the efficiency of 60 years of manipulative intelligence. The mechanism is Padmé. The mechanism has always been Padmé. Fear of loss is the architecture. The architecture does not disappear because the signature has changed. It simply needs a new entrance point. He reaches for his comlink. He has tickets to the Coruscant Opera tonight. The galaxy's opera house fills the night of the Senate District, with the particular hush of wealth and culture performing appreciation for each other. Palpatine's private box is on the upper tier, curtained, with a sightline through a carefully angled panel of one-way transparasteel to the box directly below it, where Anakin Skywalker is now sitting. Anakin walked in 4 minutes ago. He sat down. He has not looked at the stage. He is looking at the performance of looking at the stage. The specific practiced quality of a man presenting an appropriate expression, and Palpatine, watching from above, notes this with the detachment of a scientist, noting an anomalous result. He descends to the lower box. He settles into the chair beside Anakin with an air of pleased coincidence. The benevolent mentor delighted by a chance encounter. "Anakin," he says warmly, "I had no idea you were back on Coruscant." "Just arrived," Anakin says. His voice is easy, calibrated, carrying exactly the right weight of mild pleasure. The Mandalore operation concluded ahead of schedule. Excellent news. Palpatine turns his gaze to the stage, where the Mon Calamari ballet is entering its second movement. He lets a moment pass. "Then, you seem different, my boy." Mandalore was clarifying, Anakin says. Palpatine looks at him. The milky eyes run their assessment with the subtlety of a man who has been performing benevolence for so long that the performance is itself a weapon. He finds the surface of Anakin's expression precisely correct, alert, slightly tired from travel, the muted pleasure of a successful operation. Every note in place. Underneath the surface, nothing. No fear static. No grief current. No the particular flavor of suppressed rage that has always been Anakin's underlying frequency. Just the strange, flat, unprecedented absence. He begins the speech. Intimacy first. The creation of a private world between two men that excludes everyone else. Then the progressive revelation. Plagueis. The power over death. The suggestion that the Jedi's orthodoxy is a cage, rather than a foundation. He delivers each movement with the mastery of a performer who has never once given this performance to an audience that understood what they were watching. Anakin listens with the focused, slightly leaning forward posture of a man discovering something for the first time. The performance is extraordinary. It should be. He has been rehearsing it in the specific sense of a man who has heard this speech from the other side, and has spent the hyperspace jumps preparing to receive it, as if for the first time. He lets the speech build. He lets every carefully placed hesitation settle into the space between them, the way Palpatine intends. He is a man trained by the most theatrically gifted manipulator in galactic history, and he has had 40 years to prepare for exactly this moment, and the only evidence of that preparation, visible to any observer, is that he seems, tonight, entirely present to what is being said to him. Palpatine delivers the line about Darth Plagueis, about the power to keep those you love from dying. Anakin lets a beat of silence fall, the exact length of a man absorbing something enormous. Then he looks at Palpatine. The expression on his face is one Palpatine has never seen there before. Compassion. The genuine article. The compassion of a man who understands completely what it feels like to be told this particular lie, and feels something close to sorrow for the version of himself that believed it. Is the dark side of the Force, Anakin says, his voice carrying exactly the right quality of careful, wondering inquiry, a pathway to abilities some consider to be unnatural? A beat. Tell me more. Palpatine leans forward with the controlled enthusiasm of a man who has been waiting for this exact moment. He tells him more. He watches Anakin's face as he tells him, reading it with everything available to him. The trace of wrong does not leave. It is small. He cannot source it. A practitioner of lesser sensitivity would miss it entirely. But the gap in Anakin's face tonight is the specific gap of a man who already knows the end of the story he is being told. They watch the remainder of the opera in companionable silence. At the relay station in the Senate District's infrastructure layer, 40 meters below street level, Ahsoka and Rex eat at a civilian food stand and watch. The station itself is visible across a maintenance plaza, a squat durasteel structure with no identifying markings, its entrance requiring a security clearance that 3 dead men used to carry. Rex eats without looking at his food. His attention is on the plaza's geometry, entry points, sight lines, the patrol interval of the single security droid making its circuit of the station's perimeter. He has been here twice before this week. He knows the interval to the second. Whatever's happening, he says, not looking at her. Whatever you and the general are working on. A pause. You should know the men are ready. Ahsoka looks at him. Rex, the men don't know what we're working on. No. He picks up his cup. But we know our general. A beat. And we know you. That's enough. She looks at him for a moment, at the absolute uncomplicated reliability of him, the way he has always been the thing you could build a plan around because he would simply be there, exactly as promised, exactly when needed. She thinks about the chip that is no longer in his head. She thinks about what it would have made him do. She looks back at the relay station. 2 more, she says. Then we're staged. Rex nods. He stands, settles the civilian coat over his shoulders, and looks across the plaza one more time with the eyes of a man drawing a tactical map he will not need paper to remember. Across the city, in the Senate transport riding back from the Opera House, Anakin sits with his hands loose in his lap and watches the towers pass. He thinks about Palpatine's face during the Plagueis speech, the yellow beneath the milky surface, visible only to someone who knows to look, knows the specific depth at which the mask ends and the Sith begins. He watched those eyes gauge him with the expertise of 60 years and arrive at a conclusion 1 degree off from correct. The way a calculation arrives at the wrong answer when a single variable has been misidentified. Palpatine believes the bait landed. He cannot conceive of a version of Anakin Skywalker that has already chewed through that bait and spat it out and is now sitting beside him, wearing the face of a man receiving it for the first time. It is the one scenario his model cannot generate, because his model was built on the assumption that he was the most knowledgeable being in the galaxy. He was. Until he wasn't. Anakin pulls out his comlink. 1 message. Encrypted. Short. He's accelerating. 2 days. Maybe 3. The reply arrives before the transport has cleared the next intersection. We're ready. He puts the comlink away. Outside the window, Coruscant's towers slide past in their thousands, lit from within, full of people who will wake tomorrow in a galaxy still balanced on the edge of the thing they are about to do. 2 days. Maybe 3. He closes his eyes. He breathes. He is ready too. The Jedi Council chamber at dawn holds a particular quality of light. The 5 spires of the temple rise above Coruscant's endless cityscape, and at this hour the sun, the real one, clears the horizon at an angle that sends long gold bars through the chamber's high curved windows. 4 masters are present. Mace Windu at the window with his hands clasped at his back, Ki-Adi-Mundi in quiet meditation, Anakin Kolar and Saesee Tiin in low conversation at the secondary entrance. The door opens without announcement. Anakin Skywalker walks in. The 4 masters feel the shift simultaneously, the way Force sensitives feel weather, through the subtle pressure of something arriving that was not present before. Mace turns from the window. The others stop mid-motion. What they feel in Anakin's Force signature has no existing category in the Jedi lexicon. Mace reads it the way a master musician reads a chord, instantly, completely, not dark, which he has been quietly braced for since Palpatine's appointment. Not the conflicted, friction-heavy signature of a man being pulled between 2 poles. Something that reads in the Force like gravity, an immovable equilibrium with no temperature, no urgency, no gap in it where fear could enter. He looks at Anakin's face. Anakin meets his eyes without performance, without the suppressed frustration or banked resentment that has characterized every council interaction for the last 2 years. Just a man standing in a room, looking at the people he needs to address, with the full and quiet attention of someone who has prepared for this conversation across a very long time. Anakin does not wait for an invitation to speak. Palpatine is the Sith Lord you've been searching for. He says it the way he says things when the tactical situation has resolved to a single clear action. Flat. Certain, no ornament. His name in the order is Darth Sidious. He has been operating for decades from inside the Republic's highest office. The chamber holds the statement for a moment. The gold light moves across the floor. I have corroborating intelligence, including a living Sith witness, Maul, currently in Republic custody, and documentary evidence from a source I will explain fully after the arrest. Mace Windu does not speak immediately. He is parsing Anakin's Force signature with Vapad's full sensitivity, which channels the practitioner's own darkness back, and therefore reads darkness in others with exceptional precision. He finds none. He finds the gravity again, the uncategorizable equilibrium, and behind it the specific quality of a man who is not presenting a case but reporting a fact. You're certain, Mace says. Not a question. Completely, Anakin says. Mace looks at him steadily. Your source for the initial intelligence. Future knowledge, Anakin says. Mine. Received through the Force at the moment of contact with Ahsoka Tano above Mandalore 3 days ago. I understand what that sounds like. I'm also offering you a living Sith witness, documentary evidence from Fives' investigation, and the opportunity to verify everything the moment Palpatine is in custody. A beat. The source is unorthodox. The intelligence is confirmed. Something passes between Mace and Ki-Adi-Mundi, the compressed communication of 2 men who have worked alongside each other for decades. Ki-Adi-Mundi's Force signature carries the quality of a man whose long-held private suspicions have just been handed a structure. We move today, Mace says. Anakin nods. Then, I'm leading the arrest team. And Ahsoka Tano is with me. Mace's expression shifts. She holds no rank in this order. She is not a council member, she is not even formally a Jedi. Neither am I. Apparently, the words carry no bitterness. It is simply the operational reality, stated plainly. I have been serving this republic my entire life, and I am the only person in this room with a complete intelligence picture of what we're walking into. He holds Mace's gaze. You can object to my rank later. Right now, we go. The Senate district in morning light has the quality of a place that believes today is ordinary. 6 of them walk through it. Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Anakin Kolar, Saesee Tiin, Anakin, and Ahsoka, moving through the broad corridors of the executive quarter with the unhurried deliberateness of a Jedi delegation conducting routine business. Senate guards at the building's outer entrance register the group, register the council membership, nod them through. Ahsoka moves half a step behind Anakin's right shoulder. She has been here before. Not in this body, not in this timeline, but the corridors are the same corridors. The marble, the same marble. She knows this walk. She knows what it cost in the version where it didn't happen. Every step that isn't that version lands in her chest as something quieter than gratitude and heavier than relief. She is the calmest person in the corridor. This is not performance, it is simply what is true. Mace Windu, walking at the head of the formation, feels her signature beside Anakin's and notes, without commenting, that the composite resonance of the two of them together reads less like an addition and more like a chord, each frequency making the other more itself, rather than simply louder. He files this without a category label, and keeps walking. The antechamber outside the Chancellor's office is paneled in warm wood and pale stone. Mas Amedda stands near the inner door, blue-skinned, tall, with the coiled attention of a man whose entire professional existence consists of reading situations faster than the people creating them. He reads this one in 3 seconds. 6 Jedi, 2 of them anomalous, walking with the specific quality of people who are not here for a meeting. His hand moves toward his comlink. Ahsoka covers the distance between them in 4 steps. Her hand closes around his wrist, not violently, with the precise controlled force of someone redirecting rather than stopping, and the comlink transfers from his grip to hers with a smoothness that has the quality of a demonstration rather than a struggle. She looks at him. She smiles. It is the calmest, most completely authoritative smile he has ever received in a professional context, and it contains, somewhere in its geometry, the clear communication that the correct response to this moment is stillness. He is still. The inner doors open. The view through the tall curved windows, Coruscant spreading in every direction, the Senate dome visible to the south. The entire apparatus of the Republic's civilization laid out like a map of what is at stake, fills the room with the grandeur of a space designed to make everyone who enters it feel small. Palpatine is behind his desk. He looks up from a datapad, and his face assembles the correct expression. Warm surprise, the slight forward lean of a man pleased by an unexpected visit. In the fraction of a second it takes a master performer to reach for a rehearsed response. He reads the room. 6 Jedi. Anakin wrong, still wrong. Ahsoka. Unexpected. Unplanned. The composite quality of the group's presence, which is not the presence of men arriving to deliver intelligence or seek counsel. He smiles. Master Windu. Warm, measured. This is unexpected. His eyes move to Anakin. Something in them, the yellow beneath the milky surface, visible only to someone who knows how deep to look, flickers. Anakin. Anakin meets his eyes. He does not look away. He does not yield the ground of the gaze, does not soften it with the deference that Palpatine's model of him has always been able to find. He looks at him the way a man looks at something he has known completely, for a very long time, and no longer needs to study. In Anakin's chest, nothing. No rage, no grief, no the phantom pull of love that Palpatine spent 20 years learning to locate and press. The man who spent 40 years inside the creation this office built looks at the creator across a chancellor's desk, and what he feels is the specific, clear, completed feeling of a thing that is finally about to be finished. "It's over, Chancellor," Anakin says. The voice carries no rage, no grief, no performance, no ceremony, nothing dramatic in the delivery. Just the fact of it, placed in the room with the flat certainty of something that has already happened and is only now being announced. "We know who you are." The mask holds for one more second. The warmth, the mild confusion, the benevolent statesman receiving an incomprehensible statement with patient good humor. It holds for exactly as long as a mask holds when the man wearing it decides there is no longer any purpose in it. Then Darth Sidious looks out through Palpatine's eyes. The quality of the air in the room changes. Not dramatically, not the way amateurs describe the Force's darker expressions, as if darkness announces itself. More like a pressure shift. The temperature doesn't change. The light doesn't change. But something in the room that was performing ordinary has stopped performing, and what is left is 60 years of accumulated power and patience, and absolute predatory intelligence looking at 6 Jedi and making a calculation. He does not monologue. He does not explain himself or attempt to negotiate from a position he has already assessed as compromised. He reaches into his sleeves and the twin crimson blades ignite. He moves. Mace Windu is already moving when the blades clear the sleeves. His Va-Pad engagement instinct has no warm-up period. He comes in from Sidious's left flank. Sidious ignores him. He goes for Anakin, not from miscalculation, from 60 years of intelligence about Anakin Skywalker's reflexes, his tells. The specific aggressive patterns Form V generates in the first moment of engagement. His first strike is designed to exploit all three. It arrives at the precise coordinates where Anakin Skywalker's body should be. Anakin is not there. The block comes from an angle that Sidious's combat model does not have. It comes in low and lateral, meeting the Crimson Blade not at the expected impact point but 8 centimeters earlier in the arc, redirecting the momentum rather than opposing it. No aggression in the counter-movement. No rage beneath the Force. Nothing to read. Nothing to predict from. Just the clean geometry of a man who has been fighting for 60 years and finally stopped needing to prove it. Agen Kolar takes a hit on his offside trying to engage from Sidious's right. The Sith Lord's footwork shifts in the half-second between Anakin's block and Kolar's approach, and the Crimson Blade finds the gap in Kolar's guard before it fully closes. He goes down hard, wounded but breathing. Ceci Teen catches a partial strike across his left shoulder trying to shield Kolar's retreat, and the hit drives him into the wall, one arm useless, out of the engagement. 2 down. Mace, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Anakin, and Ahsoka still standing. For the first time in his adult Sith life, Darth Sidious is fighting in a box. Ahsoka comes in from his unprotected right, as Mace engages from the left, and the geometry she presents, both blue blades, the reverse grip configuration, attacking high and low simultaneously, forces Sidious to choose which exposure to prioritize. He chooses the wrong one. His footwork carries him toward Mace's angle, and in that half-step of commitment, Ahsoka's lower blade catches his guard elbow, and her upper blade redirects his saber arm, and for a fraction of a second the Sith Lord, who has never been made to feel genuine uncertainty, does not know what is happening next. Mace Windu's blade stops at his throat. Anakin's blade rests at his heart. Ahsoka's sabers cross behind him, closing the geometry. The room is still. Sidious breathes. His yellow eyes move across the three of them, arriving, with the precision of a mind that has never once failed to identify its options, at the recognition that the options have run out. He reaches for his last tool. The speech. The invitation. The thing that worked in the room where Mace was alone with him. Finish it, he says. The graveled Sith register. The voice from inside the suit's respirator, the voice that told Anakin what he was and made him believe it. Step across and finish it. You know the Jedi won't hold me. The only ending that works is the one where you do what you were made to do. Anakin looks at him. He has heard this speech before. He knows every word of what comes after it. He knows the version of himself that stood in a different room and heard this speech, and made the choice it was designed to produce. And he has carried the weight of that choice across 40 years and a death and a resurrection into this moment. He lowers his blade. Take him alive. He looks at Mace. His voice carries the flat, absolute authority of a man issuing an order he will not revisit. He'll stand trial. Mace Windu holds his blade at Sidious's throat for a long moment, the expression of a man doing something difficult and doing it anyway. Then he holds his position and does not complete the motion, and the difficulty of not completing it is visible in his face, and he does it anyway. In the corridor outside, clone boots hit the marble floor in a precise, organized rhythm. Rex's voice, calm and professional, carrying through the open door, perimeter secured. We have the building. The restraints hold for 11 minutes. They are Republic-grade force suppression cuffs, and they hold for 11 minutes because Darth Sidious has spent 60 years ensuring that no containment system in the galaxy was built with him as the threat model. The engineers who designed these cuffs were good. They were not designing for a man who has spent 6 decades studying every weakness in every system the Republic ever built. From the inside, while helping to fund the research. The break is not dramatic. One moment the cuffs are on. The next, Sidious rolls his wrists in a motion that looks almost casual, and the locking mechanism receives a frequency it was not designed to process, and fails. Agen Kolar sees it happen from his position against the wall, and his warning shout reaches Mace Windu exactly 1 syllable before Sidious moves. The twin crimson blades ignite again. He doesn't go for Mace first this time. He goes for Ahsoka. The calculation is precise. Mace's Vapad is a mirror, and Sidious has spent this entire engagement learning that throwing power at a mirror is a losing proposition. Anakin's new form has demonstrated its capacity to neutralize his speed advantage. But Ahsoka is the variable he cannot fully model, which makes her the most dangerous person in the room. And the correct response to an unmodeled threat is elimination before the model completes. He crosses the office in 3 steps. She is not where he expects her to be. The reverse grip defense does not meet his first strike, it simply removes the target. She steps offline by 6 centimeters, the minimum necessary displacement, and his blade passes through the space her body occupied a fraction of a second ago, with enough force to score the window behind her. The return stroke comes immediately, angled to compensate for her evasion, and she deflects it with her offhand blade, in a motion that begins before his shoulder commits to the angle. He cannot find the tell. Every combatant he has ever faced has produced some micro-signal in the Force, some physical anticipation before the commitment. Her tells do not connect to her movements in any pattern he can read, because the pattern was built across 40 years of experience his model does not contain. He increases power. 3 combinations that would have dismantled any opponent in the last 30 years. She is not there for any of them. Mace comes in from his left. Ki-Adi-Mundi from behind. He spins, taking both engagements simultaneously, the explosive multi-directional capacity of Juyo at its most dangerous. He beats Mace's blade back, forces Ki-Adi-Mundi into a defensive posture with a precisely placed force push, and turns back to Ahsoka. She has closed the distance while his attention was divided. One blue blade comes in low, the other angles across his guard from above. The geometry requires him to cover 2 points of entry that are not mechanically possible to cover simultaneously, which means he must choose, and choosing means exposure. Anakin's blade catches his from the side. Sidious pivots. This is the calculation he has been building toward. Anakin, one-on-one. He knows Anakin Skywalker's combat signature the way a composer knows the instrument he wrote a symphony for. He delivers his psychological assault between strikes with surgical precision, designed to locate the fault lines in Anakin's architecture and press them open. You know what you are, Anakin, between a downstroke and a lateral cut, 2 crimson blades moving in the coordinated pattern that has ended the careers of better Jedi than any currently living. The darkness doesn't leave because you've decided not to look at it. Anakin says nothing. Sidious presses. The woman you love is still going to die. What you are capable of to prevent it lives in you. I built it. It doesn't unmake itself because you had a revelation in a hangar. Anakin says nothing. He fights. His strikes are heavy and few. No aggression in the Force beneath them. No rage. No grief. No the emotional frequency that Palpatine has been reading in this body for 20 years and building countermeasures for. He meets Sidious's speed not by matching it but by finding the geometry that makes speed irrelevant. Each block placed to redirect rather than oppose, using Sidious's own momentum to open the next angle, the way water uses a riverbed. Sidious throws everything. The full Juyo assault. The speed that cleared Kohler and Tien in the first engagement. Combinations that have ended lives. He drives Anakin back 2 steps. 3, pressing the advantage of accumulated velocity, feeling the engagement tip toward his model. Then Anakin stops moving backward. He plants. He receives a full Juyo combination with Gem-So counter-principle, meeting every strike at its midpoint, bleeding the momentum, not yielding another centimeter. And the experience of driving power into something that does not break and does not respond is so foreign to Sidious's 60 years of combat, that it produces for the first time a hairline fracture in his certainty. He reaches for the psychological tools again. Luke, the name, placed between strikes with the precision of a man who has studied Anakin's deepest architecture. Your son, who needs his father to be what he was always capable of being. A pause, time to land on Anakin's guard transition. Finish me and be what you are. There is no other version of this that works. Anakin says nothing. He meets the next strike, redirects the momentum, and presses forward for the first time since the engagement began. 1 step. Steady, heavy, without anger. Sidious feels it before he processes it, the shift in direction, the reversal of momentum, the specific wrongness of a Juyo practitioner being pressed backward by a man who is not matching his aggression. His combinations escalate. He is throwing everything he has at a foundation that will not move, and the foundation is not even straining. He begins, for the first time since the restraints broke, to calculate retreat. Ahsoka has been circling. While Anakin held Sidious's full attention, she has been moving around the room's perimeter with the quiet patience of someone who has learned that the most powerful beings in the galaxy all share one structural weakness. They can only fully attend to what is in front of them. She comes from his unprotected left. Not fast, precisely, one blade angles in beneath his guard at the wrist of his primary striking hand. The other comes across at shoulder height from the opposite direction, requiring him to address two simultaneous threats at 45-degree angles with a single responding motion. He has been in this geometry before. She showed it to him in the first engagement, and he chose wrong, and Mace's blade ended that round at his throat. He recognizes it. Recognition is not the same as solution. He chooses wrong again. He covers his striking hand, and the upper blade scores across his shoulder, and the pain arrives clean and total, and in the half-second of his body's response, Anakin's blade comes in from the front and stops at his heart. Mace Windu positions his blade at Sidious's throat from behind. 3 blades. 1 geometry. No exit. Sidious looks at Anakin across the crossed lightsabers and reaches for the last tool available to him. Finish it. The Sith voice. The graveled register from 60 years below the Chancellor's surface. Step across and finish it. You know what I'll do if they try to hold me. The only ending that works is the one where you do what you were made to do. Anakin looks at him. He lowers his blade. The movement is slow and deliberate, not the collapse of a man losing his nerve, the decision of a man who has resolved something, finally and completely, at a depth Sidious cannot reach. Take him alive. He looks at Mace. He'll stand trial. Mace Windu holds his position for a long moment. His expression is the expression of a man doing something difficult and doing it anyway, which is, in the end, the definition of what Vapad was designed to make possible. He holds the blade and does not complete the motion, and the difficulty of not completing it is visible in his face, and he does it anyway. Sidious reaches for the signal. Not visibly. There is no gesture, no verbal command, no outward indication of what he is doing. It is a purely internal action, the Sith encrypted command buried 60 years deep in the Republic's clone army infrastructure, accessible only through the specific bioelectric frequency of Darth Sidious's force signature, interfacing with the biochip relay network embedded in the hypothalamy of 1.2 million clone troopers across the galaxy. He transmits it. The command fires. It races outward through the holonet at the speed of light, toward every clone unit in the galaxy, toward every Jedi general currently in the field, toward the activation of the galaxy's largest and most precisely engineered betrayal. Ahsoka's comlink chimes once. Rex's voice, calm, professional. Jammer is active. The signal is not getting through. In 6 comm relay stations distributed through Coruscant's Senate District infrastructure layer, the 6 stations Ahsoka and Rex mapped across 2 nights of civilian-clothed reconnaissance. The signal meets a wall. Not interference in the ordinary sense. Rex's protocol is a surgical counter-frequency, designed with the specific bioelectric signature of the Order 66 command embedded in its architecture, designed to find that frequency and cancel it at the source. He built it in 48 hours with 4 troopers and the complete technical specifications Ahsoka provided from memory. It is, in the vocabulary of military communications engineering, exactly correct. The signal dies. Sidious feels it fail. The sensation is specific and total, the absence where the transmission should have landed, the silence where a galaxy of responding chips should have produced a cascade of activation signals. The silence is worse than the failure. The silence means not just that the signal was blocked, but that someone built a system specifically calibrated to block it. Which means they knew what it was, which means they knew the frequency. Which means the full weight of what that means arrives all at once. Not a lucky interference, not a technical malfunction. They knew. The specific command, the specific frequency. the specific relay architecture. The soul inside Anakin Skywalker's body has already lived the future where this signal worked, and used that knowledge to build the precise mechanism to stop it. For the first time in 60 years, Darth Sidious is afraid. It is not a large fear. It is small and cold and precise, the fear of a man who has built his entire existence on the certainty that he is the most knowledgeable entity in the room, discovering that he is not. The restraints are reapplied. The 501st files into the office with the organized efficiency of soldiers who have been briefed, staged, and are executing a plan they understand completely. Rex positions himself just inside the door. His DC-15 is at his side, not raised. He looks at Anakin. Anakin looks back. Rex nods once. That is the entirety of what passes between them, and it is enough. Then Sidious opens. What he has been holding in reserve is the raw force capacity accumulated over 6 decades, deployed at full depth, not a lightsaber fight, not a tactical engagement. Pure force. The full depth of a Sith Lord's connection to the dark side, opened completely, unleashed without the strategic filtering he applies in normal combat. Not aimed. Not targeted. Released, the way a pressure vessel releases when the seal fails, in every direction simultaneously, at a volume that has no tactical ceiling. The room goes white. Every piece of technology in the Chancellor's office dies in the same instant. The comm systems, the security monitors, the lighting. The force lightning comes from everywhere. Not from Sidious's hands, but from Sidious, from the air around him, from the surfaces the force runs through in his vicinity. It is not a bolt. It is a storm, and it fills the office from floor to ceiling. And the sound it makes is not a crack or a snap, but a continuous roar that contains every frequency of sound simultaneously. The windows crack, not break, crack, the transparent steel developing fracture lines from the center outward. Anakin and Ahsoka are thrown apart by the initial shockwave. 3 meters each, the distance the kinetic component produces at its epicenter, when it finds 2 targets who know it is coming, and have already begun to brace. Neither of them has felt it at this volume. Mace Windu raises a barrier with everything he has, and the partial bolt that finds its edge drives him sideways into the wall with enough force to crack the stone behind his shoulder. He goes down on one knee, stays there, does not fall further. The room is white and roaring. Then Anakin and Ahsoka get up. They find each other by feel, not by sight. The white is too total. Not by sound. The roar is too complete. They find each other through the Force, through the specific resonance of 2 signatures attuned to each other across 40 years of alternating tragedy and love. The frequency that recognized itself in a hangar above Mandalore and has been building since. In the white and the roar, that frequency is the only clear signal in the room. They cross their sabers. 4 blades. 2 pairs, 2 built by Anakin's hands from crystals that carry his midi-chlorian signature in their lattice structure. 2 tuned by Ahsoka's force presence into something no longer entirely separate from his. The crossing creates a geometry of resonance. 4 kyber crystals in precise proximity. 2 force signatures in complete contact. The bond between them running as a closed circuit through the contact point of the crossed hilts. The lightning hits the crossed blades and stops. Not blocked the way a physical barrier blocks force. Absorbed. The way a resonance field absorbs a matching frequency. The way a tuning fork absorbs the note it was built to receive. The lightning pours in from every direction and arrives at the resonance field and finds nothing to grip. No darkness to amplify. No rage to feed back into the strike. No gap between the 2 of them where fear could enter and be used as a conductor. The circuit is closed. The lightning has nowhere to go. It begins to reverse. The reversal is slow at first, not a redirection but a reclamation, the force taking back what was released into it and returning it through the path of least resistance, which is the path back to its source. Sidious feels it traveling back along the frequency he opened. He cannot close the frequency. He has committed the full depth of the strike, and commitment at this depth is not reversible. The return is not vicious. There is no anger in it, no punishment, no force user's will driving it back as a weapon. It is simply the Force balancing itself, with the total indifference of a physical law completing its operation. Darth Sidious crumbles. He falls to the floor of his own office, and the fall is total, and the lightning clears and he is small on the floor of it, in a way that has nothing to do with physical size. He does not die. His body, sustained by the dark side for 6 decades, is more resilient than ordinary flesh. He lives. He will continue to live, diminished, for as long as the Republic's justice system requires him to. But he is finished. The silence that comes after the lightning is the specific silence of a very large sound ending. The silence that contains the shape of what preceded it, the way a space contains the shape of what it held. Then Rex, stepping over cracked stone and debris with the focused competence of a man who has been in worse and knows what needs to happen next. "Perimeter secured," he says. "We have the subject." Mace Windu, one hand pressed against a shoulder that will require 2 hours of medical attention, looks across the office at Anakin and Ahsoka. They are still standing at the center of it, crossed blades finally lowering, in the settling quiet of 2 people who have spent everything they had, and found that everything was exactly enough. His expression is unreadable for a long moment. Then it resolves into something unfamiliar. The specific look of a man doing something rare and difficult, and necessary. "I owe you an apology, Skywalker. Several, in fact." Anakin looks at him. The warmth that will eventually grow between them has not arrived yet. There is too much distance still to cross, too much history on both sides of the ledger. But the space where it will grow is present, and both of them can feel it. "Let's get through the next 48 hours first," Anakin says. From Rex's secured comm hub, a different signal goes out. Not Order 66. Not Sidious's signal. Not the one that was supposed to end the Jedi and begin the Empire. A secure, authenticated override from the 501st Legion Command Channel, the most trusted unit in the Republic Army, bearing Anakin Skywalker's command signature, transmitted simultaneously to every clone unit in the galaxy. 3 words. Stand down. Secure. In fleet after fleet, on 100 worlds, clone commanders receive the transmission and look at the Jedi generals standing beside them, and look at each other, and look at the morning through whatever viewport or open sky is available to them. The moment that was supposed to be a massacre becomes simply another morning. Another morning, with the same commanders, and the same generals, and the same war that is about to end, and all of them still alive to see it. Outside the cracked windows of the Chancellor's office, Coruscant glitters in the light of a sun that has risen on a different galaxy than the one that went to sleep last night. The Sith Lord is small on the floor. The Order never came. The days after do not arrive as a single dramatic morning. They arrive in pieces, the way recovery always arrives, one small thing becoming stable, then another, the structure of a new reality assembling itself not in a single moment of transformation, but in the accumulation of ordinary decisions made by people who are exhausted and have chosen to continue anyway. The Senate convenes 3 days after the arrest. Padmé takes the floor in the full chamber for the first time since the emergency powers were granted, and the Emergency Powers Revocation Act she introduces is not a surprise to the 6 senators who received Bail's sealed brief before dawn on the morning of the arrest. The vote carries, not narrowly, with enough margin that the result is clear before the final tally, the kind of margin that tells you the chamber had been holding its breath against exactly this possibility and is now releasing it all at once. Padmé's voice is steady throughout. It does not waver on a single word. In the days that follow, the separatist war staggers. Without Sidious coordinating both sides simultaneously, without the Sith Lord's hand adjusting each pressure point to ensure the conflict continued at precisely the temperature required, the machinery of the war loses its organizing intelligence and begins to slow. Republic and separatist negotiators meet for the first time without a shadow puppeteer behind either curtain. And the common ground they find is more than anyone expected, because the common ground was always there. It was simply never permitted to be found. On 100 worlds, clone troopers remove their helmets and look at each other as if for the first time. Some of them do not know what to do with their faces in the open air. They learn. The Jedi Temple lights stay on through every night of it. Maul gives his testimony before a joint Senate Jedi tribunal on the 6th day. He is precise and unembellished, which surprises the chamber. They were expecting performance, the theatrical malevolence of a Sith warrior constructing a narrative. What they receive instead is testimony in the mode of a man who has calculated that the most dangerous thing available to him in this room is the truth. Delivered without ornament, every word of it is damning. The Rule of Two, the Darth Plagueis succession. The specific mechanics of Sidious's infiltration of the Republic's political infrastructure, which Maul has been observing from adjacent positions for 30 years, and can describe with the detail of a witness who paid attention because his own survival depended on it. The Jedi Council's skepticism collapses in the first hour. By the second hour, the chamber is quiet with the specific quiet of people absorbing the scale of what they are being told. Maul delivers all of it, without enjoyment. He is precise because precision serves him, not because he has experienced a conversion. When it is over, he accepts the judgment. Remanded to a Republic correctional facility, with the pragmatism of a man who has survived far worse by adapting to circumstances beyond his control. He adapts. Anakin resigns his knighthood on a Tuesday morning. He walks into the council chamber with the measured courtesy of a man who has arrived at peace with the institution, even as he leaves it. He does not perform this. He does not dress it in grievance or frame it as an indictment. He stands before the assembled council, the full council, Yoda having returned, and he says what is true, that the soul inhabiting this body has completed a journey that required him to move beyond the institution that shaped him, and that moving beyond it is not a rejection of what was good in it. Yoda listens. The Grand Master, who has spent 9 centuries developing his capacity for equanimity, is clearly moved, not visibly, but in the Force, in the specific frequency of a being who has felt Anakin's signature since the divergence, and has been meditating on its meaning, and has arrived at something close enough to an answer. He does not ask Anakin to stay. He says, "Walk your path, you will." The Force walks with you. A pause, the length of a breath. It always has. Ki-Adi-Mundi speaks next, which surprises the room. The question of whether you were the chosen one, he says, has been a source of much debate. He inclines his head. I no longer believe there is a question. Mace Windu says nothing for a long moment. He looks at Anakin with the expression of a man doing something unfamiliar and doing it with the full weight of his character, the only way Mace Windu does anything. Then he looks at the floor. Then back. Thank you, he says. 2 words. The right 2 words. In the right order, from the right man. It is, in the vocabulary of everything that has passed between them, the suspicion, the misjudgment, the 40 years of an alternate history where none of this happened, exactly enough. The Council asks Ahsoka the same question they failed to ask her correctly in the original timeline. She considers it. She gives it the full weight of genuine consideration, sitting with the question the way she has learned to sit with difficult things, which is completely and without flinching from the parts that are hardest. Then she declines. Not from exhaustion, not from the disillusionment that drove her out of the temple in the life she already lived. This is a declination from clarity, which is a different thing entirely, and feels different in the room. She tells them what she is, not a Jedi, not a Sith, not a title the galaxy currently has a word for, a Force user outside the institution, outside the war, carrying the particular wisdom of someone who has lived twice and learned from both times. She will travel. She will help the people who exist in the empty spaces between the Council's reach, the ones who fall through the gaps of institutional attention. She asks one thing, that Rex and a small squad of volunteer troopers from the 501st, men who chose this, who are no one's weapons but their own, be assigned as companions for her first year of it. The Council agrees without deliberation. As she reaches the chamber door, she pauses, looks back. Master Yoda sits in his chair with his eyes on her, and 9 centuries of life behind them. Master Yoda, she says, in the years ahead, keep the lights on. The galaxy's going to need the temple. Yoda tilts his head. Something in his ancient eyes softens into what is unmistakably, in the vocabulary of a being who has chosen economy of expression across 900 years, fondness. Keep them on, we will, he says. She nods once. She walks out into the corridor. and Rex is waiting at the end of it with his helmet under his arm and the expression of a man who is ready to go wherever the next thing takes him, and she smiles at him with the full weight of everything they have survived together across 2 timelines, and they walk out of the temple into the morning. Naboo, the lake country in summer. The house above the water that Anakin remembered from a wedding in another life, smaller than memory made it. More real. The stone warm from the afternoon sun, and the lake below it, catching the last of the light in long gold bars across the surface. 2 years have passed. Enough time for wounds to scar into something livable. Enough time for the galaxy to remember what peace feels like, and begin, cautiously, to organize itself around it. Luke has found a frog. He is 2 years old and absolutely certain about the frog, and has been certain about it for the better part of an hour. Leia is attempting to negotiate the frog's ownership. 2 years old and approaching this negotiation with the focused political intensity of someone who will one day run a rebellion. The absolute unblinking conviction of a person who has never once encountered a problem that wasn't addressable through the correct application of will. Padmé watches them from the doorway. She has been afraid for so long that peace, when it arrived, felt like standing on a boat, something that required getting used to, the constant small adjustments of a person learning to trust a surface that moves. She is getting used to it. She is standing in the doorway of a house above a lake on her home planet, watching her children argue about a frog, and she is getting used to it. And it is the best thing that has ever happened to her. In the garden, Anakin is playing at being a wall. His children are attempting to climb him, and he is not trying very hard to prevent this. Luke has abandoned the frog briefly to scale Anakin's left side with the focused determination of a child for whom the Force is already a natural vocabulary. Objects stay where Luke puts them. Water pours slightly upward when he wants it to, and Anakin watches this with the specific expression of a man who was the most powerful Force-sensitive ever recorded, and has just discovered what that looks like at 2 years old. Leia secures the frog in Luke's absence. A shuttle descends through the afternoon and lands in the clearing beyond the house. The ramp lowers in the last of the afternoon light. Ahsoka steps out. She has been traveling for 2 years, and the traveling shows in the way she carries herself, not weariness, but a settledness. The particular quality of a person who has found that they know how to be in the galaxy without requiring the galaxy to arrange itself around them. She is wearing the same blue sabers. She hasn't found the white crystals yet, or perhaps she has decided not to look, or perhaps they will find her when she has stopped thinking about them. Leia spots her before anyone else does. She looks up from the frog with the absolute social confidence of a 2-year-old who has decided this new arrival is significant. "Shoka," she says, with the complete authority of someone who has named a thing, and by naming it claimed it. Ahsoka crosses the clearing and crouches to Leia's level. She looks at her, the enormous serious eyes, the focused attention, the complete absence of any inclination to be anything other than exactly herself, already, at 2 years old. "Hey you," she says. "Do you have any idea who you're going to be?" Leia regards her with the gravity of a small person who has considered this question and arrived at a confident answer. "Important," she says. The laugh that comes out of Ahsoka is real, the kind of laugh that arrives when grief and joy have finally settled into the same space and found they can coexist. The kind you can only produce after you have survived everything that made you afraid you wouldn't be able to laugh like that again. "Yeah," she says. "You are." Anakin crosses the garden. He reaches her and they stand together in the settling afternoon the way soldiers stand together after a long campaign, not celebrating, just present. Just occupying the same ground at the same time with the specific ease of people who have earned the right to stand still. "You should see Luke with the Force," he says. She raises her eyebrows. "Already?" He levitates the frog when Leia takes it. Ahsoka bites her lip against a smile that comes anyway. That's incredible." A beat, while she absorbs the image. "That's also a problem for about 15 years from now." "I know," Anakin says. "I'm choosing not to think about it yet." She looks at the house, at the lake below it, the water going dark now as the sun drops, the gold bars on the surface softening toward silver. At Padmé in the doorway, Luke retrieved and balanced on her hip, laughing at something Leia is explaining with great seriousness. At the garden, the stone walls, The ordinary permanent beauty of a place that has been here longer than any of them and will be here long after. She has lived in harder places than this for longer than she wants to count. She has stood on Malachor with the dust of an ancient battlefield under her feet, and looked into the eye of her master behind a Sith mask, and kept fighting. She has walked the world between worlds and felt time move around her like water and come back through and kept going. She is standing in a garden on Naboo in the summer, and Luke Skywalker just levitated a frog. And Leia Skywalker has named her with the absolute authority of a 2-year-old who recognizes a person of importance. And the lake is going silver in the fading light. "We did it, Sky Guy," she says. Anakin looks at his family. Padmé in the doorway with Luke on her hip. Leia building her case about the frog to an audience of one who is not listening. The house. The lake. The light on the water that is the same light that has always been on this water and will be long after tonight. He feels no shadow, no weight, no the specific gravity of a future he was afraid of. Just the simple, complete fullness of a life that has landed, finally and completely, where it was always supposed to be. "Yeah, Snips," he says. "We did." The lake holds the last of the light. The evening comes in slow and warm from the south. Somewhere in the garden the frog achieves its freedom and departs into the reeds. And Luke watches it go with the focused attention of someone who will spend his life paying attention to small important things, and Leia watches it go with the expression of someone already planning the next negotiation. The Force moves through the evening like a river moving through country it has always known, unhurried, without agenda, complete. Here, now, this. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.